EU was a missing piece in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of a multipolar world. It is a game changer that India has achieved with EU, and all credit to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his team, and the European leadership. The products which India exports and Europe imports complement each other. They do not compete with each other. The European defense majors partnering with Indian private sector, that is the most critical one. The Indian private sector is now free to go and join hands with the European defense measures, and that's how it started. So you are looking at a maritime architecture, you are looking at cybersecurity, you're looking at space, you are looking at a defense partnership. The message very clearly to everybody is that, listen, India has options.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all you watching Hindustan Times, and my name is Aisha Varma. On today's segment of Point Blank, India and the European Union have finalized a major free trade agreement that will create one of the world's largest economic partnerships, covering a market of around 2 billion people and nearly a quarter of the global GDP. Joining us to discuss this is HT's Executive Editor, Mr. Shishir Gupta. Sir, namaskar. Sir, this is a mega deal that has been announced. What are the next steps?
See, the deal has been announced. And since the negotiations were done in English, the deal is going to be translated into 22 languages of the European Union member states. Once each and every member country has vetted the deal will be going to the European Parliament for ratification. Once that happens, the deal will be signed. I am told that the total time that it takes is going to be around an year. So, like January 2027 is the time when we expect that the deal is going to be initialed. That is how the deal goes. Now, there is a deal, then there is a defense and security pact, and then there is an agenda, a comprehensive strategic agenda. These are three parts that have been signed, that have been put out today. Now, what essentially it means is that India and EU will be holding a market which can possibly do trade around $300 billion within possibly 1.5 years after the deal has been initialed. Right now, the India-EU trade is around $130 billion. It's the biggest deal. What is very significant about the deal is that Europe is a mature market. It is a market where people spend. It is not like China. Here the people spend, it's a mature market, and the products which India exports and Europe imports complement each other. They do not compete with each other. That is the most significant part of it, right? It is also a deal where the Indian private sector and the European private sector, which deals with high technology, the two marry each other. And it is a deal which actually translates into a huge strategic comprehensive partnership between the two blocks. That is what is important about this deal, right? So, fact remains is that this deal is something that India has been trying to work since 2007. It folded up in 2013. But it is to the credit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi that he revived the entire thing and pushed for the trade deal, because that is a first step towards a very larger engagement with the European bloc. Europe as a whole is nearly a $19-20 trillion economy. It has population around 40 million. Now, add to India's $4.2 trillion economy, 1.5 billion population, and you then see how big it is. It is the biggest deal that Europe has signed with any other country. Why I'm saying this is, there is another deal that Europe has signed, which with the Latin American countries, which are the Mercosur countries, but that deal is right now lying in the European Court of Justice. So, fact remains is, simply put, it is a game changer that India has achieved with EU, and all credit to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his team, and the European leadership, that is Antonio Costa and Ursula von der Leyen.
Sir, would you also be able to tell us more about the defense and security partnership with the EU?
See, the defense and security partnership with EU actually broadly translates into three places.
Okay.
One is the European defense majors partnering with Indian private sector. That is the most critical one. Here, there is no role for the Indian bureaucracy. So, people will tell you that, listen, you have to sign first the Security of Information Agreement, then you go into what is called PESCO, that is protocol, and then subsequently things will happen where Indian defense sector can participate joint venture with the European defense sector. Now, that is the bureaucratic part of it. The most important part in this is that the Indian private sector is now free to go and join hands with the European defense measures, and that's how it starts. Second part is, Europe is very big on cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is the key to ensure that the country remains safe in times of hostility. Right? So, cybersecurity partnership is going to be there, and Europe has a very developed cybersecurity industry. And the third thing is maritime security. Now, given that we have the India-US relationship is going through a turbulent phase, you have to look at the Indo-Pacific, and in that, Europe can contribute a lot. So, you are looking at a maritime architecture, you are looking at cybersecurity, you are looking at space, you are looking at a defense partnership. But ultimately here, the most important thing will be the Indian private sector joining hands with the European private sector, and the two can build military platforms in India under Make in India route.
So, beyond this, what message does this trade deal essentially send across the globe?
See, the deal, actually, everybody will be looking and is looking towards India and the EU, right? Because it is not only trade, it is defense and security partnership. So, it's a comprehensive agreement. And the agenda, how do the two take themselves forward? It is also part of, EU was a missing piece in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of a multipolar world. And India had ties with US, India has ties with Russia, India has ties with China, which have been improving by the day. India has been looking at ASEAN, India has been looking at Australia, Canada, Japan. But it was EU which was the critical part of it. Today, that piece has been fixed. And that sends a huge message to everybody. Because India-EU trade, I am not really, fibbing when I say it can go up to as much as $500 billion towards the end of this decade. That big it is. And if it goes the way it is, then you're looking at a game-changing event that has taken place today.
So, who played a crucial role in this? How was this achieved?
That's a very good question, because it started in 2007, and what happened is that there were 10 rounds of talks that took place, but nothing could be achieved, and it virtually shut down in 2013. Now, why was it shut down in 2013? Was because the Indian bureaucracy, the Indian government at that time, did not want to take steps on automobile sector, on auto parts, and on wines, right? They didn't want to, they wanted to have barriers on that, to which the Europeans did not agree. once Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power, this was one of the first agendas that he told everybody that I need to achieve this. So the talks started, we first approached them in 2015, then we tried to approach them in 2017, and let me tell you, the then DG Trade Development virtually told us that, listen, we don't have time for you. We don't have time for India because, we are wasting our time. We tried to reach out to them again and again. Now, subsequently what happened is that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi pushed for it, and in 2021, we again started, talking to them. We tried to reach out to them under the trade and investment dialogue, right? It was constant talking to them, telling that, listen, we are willing to change. And then we virtually gave them a paper that this is what we are going to do for them. So the multiple 10 rounds took place, led by Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who played a very significant part, Prime Minister's direction, S. Jaishankar, the teams, the Commerce Ministry, the Ministry of External Affairs, everybody pitched in, the PMO, everybody pitched in. So it was basically Team Modi that delivered. And in June 2022, we started negotiating, talking to each other and having rounds. It was after 10 rounds that we've been able to achieve what has been announced today. So it has been a long story. It has been a long story, but let me tell you that once the deal is initial, that is, it may be taking a year, maybe 9 months, 10 months, 90% of Indian exports will be going towards EU on a zero duty, first. Second thing is, there are countries in the Indian subcontinent like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, who were taking advantage of the least developed countries, and preferential trade, GSP 1 plus, which is called. Once the trade deal is signed, India will also be exporting at the same rate, that is zero duty. So, India, there'll be a level playing field in the Indian subcontinent, and that is going to be really a game changer when it happens, right? So that is that. Second thing is that India and EU trade, they complement each other. For instance, like EU does high-tech engineering, we do slightly second-level engineering. We do leather products, we do garment, we do textiles, right? We do gems and jewelry. Their market needs these products and we need their products. So we are not competing with each other on that. So that is why the deal is going to work. Europe market, people like to spend. It's not like China where people don't spend, where the consumption is not high. It's a high consumption market, and that is why it is going to help. Europe is going to bring in products to India. We are going to export over there, and whatever we have been losing in terms of tariff, in terms of other restrictions that have been put, we will be able to diversify and virtually improve on the numbers. So it's a very, very big event that has happened today. And all credit to these teams.
So now what does this mean for India and the EU going forward?
See, this will definitely take the relationship to a next stage. There's going to be a lot of trust. Once you do a trade deal, there's going to be a lot of trust between the two sides. And if you're looking at you can look at a joint project like Eurodrone. You can look at, European automakers coming to India, because India is a cheaper, you can make automobiles cheaper. You can make auto parts cheaper. The supply chains are going to move up and down. Like India has a lot of investment in European automakers. We also, some companies are already there with the European automakers. They've bought those companies. So the supply chains are going to be there. And if the product can be made cheaper in India, then they will do that. If the product can be high tech, then India can import from there. So the two are going to virtually sort of plug into each other, the markets, and this will ensure that something like, like maybe, armed drones, maybe top class cybersecurity, maybe better ship making. See, it's a new world that is going to open up today, and has opened up today. And the message very clearly to everybody is that, listen, India has options. India, all this browbeating with India does not work. And that's why we have kept quiet on everything. We have not uttered a word when everybody has been speaking. The entire government is keeping quiet. They've just been looking at the trade deal, and PM Modi has been working at it. So this is basically a fruition of very hard, negotiations, basically building up trust. And, the trade deal also is, is going to help, jobs. There's a mobility agreement in this. It's also, it will also help the labor. It's a labor intensive trade deal. So, sum it up, it's a win-win for India and EU. It's a win-win because it stabilizes the world because of two huge blocks coming together. And it also puts pressure on other countries to also conclude a trade deal with India as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Sir, thank you so much for joining us and giving us all of those important details about this mega deal. With that, it's a wrap, but do stay tuned to Hindustan Times.